Welcome, you unfortunate lost soul, to have stumbled across my YouTube platform. Out of all the places you could have clicked, you clicked on this video. Well, that's kind of good news and bad news. The bad news is that you're gonna have to listen to my mindless ramblings forever now. The good news is that maybe these ramblings would actually be useful. So, either way, welcome to rants that probably aren't worth your time. That might be what I name it. What I name my rants. I'm not even sure. Um, it's a working title, you know. Either way, the progress or the situation currently is that I think I'd like to contribute something to people by talking about topics that I'm knowledgeable in. These topics include science, mathematics, philosophy, ethical dilemmas, whatever it is, those kinds of stuff. Personality, theory, stuff like that, I suppose. So, any questions concerning those kind of things, or even just topics that I am passionate about, I talk about them here, and based on that, I upload them, and we'll see what happens. So, the way this is going to work is if you have any questions at all about science or mathematics or whatever it is that I had just said, send me a question in the comments below, and hopefully, if I actually get some questions, I can answer them. If not, I'll just have to continue talking about things that I find interesting on my own. Either way, there are some things I suppose I should say about this series or podcast. The first thing is that I don't have much credibility or much of a, how do I put this, an authority to say something like these rants are worth your time. They probably aren't, or even if they are worth listening to, I don't have any I don't have any evidence to tell you to do so, because if you might look at my channel, it's mostly just shit posting and suddenly just me talking about stuff. So this is a bit of an experimentation, I suppose, right? It's more so to do with what I would like to do rather than what the viewer would like to do, which is a bit selfish, but everyone's selfish in their own way, so I don't really mind that, It's a bit of an interesting topic, actually. There are a lot of people who I think would believe that being selfish is a bad thing and therefore they shouldn't be selfish, but I don't view it that way. I view that I don't view being selfish as a bad thing. I view it in such a way that everyone very much is selfish in their own way. Even if you come down to the fact of, let's say, the hardest working person working for their family, they work for just their family because it's a selfish desire, just like everyone else's, If you look carefully at every person, I'm pretty sure you can see that everyone is selfish in their own way, and therefore I don't really see a problem with being selfish. I bet there are people out there who might say things like, I am not selfish, but they make a bit conflation with confusing being selfish with being bad, and I don't think being selfish is a bad thing. I just think everyone's selfish in their own way, so whatever, everyone's got different ways of being selfish. Either way, the point is, watch out for the people who do say things like, I don't want to be selfish, because that's very much akin to them saying, I'm a good person. I'm not really sure why or how a person can admit that, to be honest, because most of my life, for example, I've been very humble. It's been very hard for me to admit. It's a bit funny because you can't really say that you're humble if you. It's already humbling to say that you are humble if you just admit that. Yeah, I suppose I should also say that I waffle a lot. I'll probably improve with time, but as you can see, I waffle a lot. Also, these rants do tend to be somewhat all over the place, and they do tend to be somewhat what's the word? Offensive. Not that I mean to offend people, but I can tend to say certain things as a joke. I hope that won't be a bit of a. I hope that won't be an issue, but I'm just putting that warning out there. I don't mind talking about offensive things, not because I want to offend people, but mostly because I feel like these are topics that are very worthwhile talking about. For instance, things like abortion and whatnot. I suppose that should give you a bit of a taste for what kind of rants these are, or what kinds of people or the intended audience target of these rants, you know. But the point is, me talking about abortion isn't to trigger people. It's to talk about issues that we currently have and see how we deal with them, you know. So if there are any issues like this that people would like me to talk about, or even questions about science in particular, anything at all in science, you know, things like, oh, what is the powerhouse of the cell? That seems like a very simple question, but you know, things like that. If there were ever any things you were curious about, you know, you just look outside the world and you're like, huh, how does that work? If you ask me, I probably know the answer. That's not me trying to profess that I'm incredibly good at science and I'm a smart person. No, I probably can get certain things wrong. And one of my hopes is that we can learn about these things together. If I do get something wrong, I would kind of challenge you on that as well. If I give you an answer that, and you Google search it, and you see that that's not the answer, then voila, you've just bested me in my own game. At the apparent one thing that I'm good at, which is just being a nerd. So there we are, right? So that's a bit of a challenge, I guess. If you can propose a question that I cannot answer, or give you a wrong answer to, I suppose I'll have myself bested. Either way, right? So any question in science with biology, chemistry, physics, psychology, whatever it is, right? I'm not as good towards social sciences as I am towards the actual physical sciences. So that's probably something to keep in mind for people out there who are studying the social sciences. Sorry about that. But yeah, everything else that's fundamental, that's more of my area of forte. I suppose that's it. Yeah, either way, as I was saying, right? Yeah, waffly. I apologize for that. Hopefully you will have enough patience to deal with this. But as I was saying, these issues, I don't talk about them because I mean to offend people. I talk about them mostly because it's something that I find interesting to talk about. And these are only problems that can be solved when you do talk about them, not when they aren't talked about. After all, throwing something under a carpet isn't ever going to fix it unless the solution is to ignore it. In most of the cases, in most of these things that I'm talking about, that's not quite the case. So yeah, I suppose that is something to keep in mind. Apart from that, there probably are a few other things as well. Since this is the first video, audio, whatever it is, right? It's probably going to be a black screen. That's how it is in my mind. That it's just going to be an audio recording with a boring black screen. I'm sorry about that, guys. Please let me know with suggestions or anything like that if there are any improvements you'd want to the audio quality. But don't expect too much from me. I'm just this one person on the internet who's kind of shitposting. I bet this video is gonna get like only 10 views, but that's honestly kind of what I'm aiming for, to be honest. I would like to start small. I honestly wouldn't. I don't have any aspirations of trying to go big. You know, my only real aspiration is to be able to improve myself by learning new things and hopefully help other people learn in the process. That's how it's always been. It's just that I'm not sure. Well, not everyone relates with this, right? But for me, most of my satisfaction in life comes from listening to my curiosity. So whenever I learn about how things work, I get an immense satisfaction from it. That's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about science. I just absolutely love it. It's so beautiful to me to see how things work. You know, for you to, for instance, this is going to sound really silly, but for you, for instance, to look at your cells, right? For instance, one of the differences between the cell of a bacterium and the cell of like an animal cell, right, is the DNA. The DNA in a bacterium is circular, right, like a loop, a ring, whereas the DNA in an animal is linear, which is like a rope. It's not a ring. It's just a straight line, a rope that's coiled here and there. But the point is, it's not a ring, right? And it turns out that the reason it's not a ring is why animals, plants, they're all not immortal like bacteria are. Haven't you ever wondered why, even though bacteria and animal cells, plant cells, all reproduce by mitosis, right, asexually, by mitosis, right, which the cells divide, even though they do reproduce by mitosis, the bacterium cells always seem to be able to keep dividing continuously, infinitely, without ever dying of old age, whereas our cells, right, on our skin, they multiply continuously, and after a while they just start to wrinkle, and you're like, excuse me, what's going on? And turns out the reason that happens is because of the fact that we have linear DNA. I can go on and explain more about it, right? But the point is, these are the kinds of things that I can talk about, and I can go further into this if people do want me to talk about it. Any questions like this, any questions to do with chemistry, physics, whatever it is, questions like this. If you've ever thought about certain things of like, oh, okay, so why is it that certain animals are like this, but we're not like this? Or why is it that the world works this way? Oh, why is it that the sky is blue? It might sound simple, and you could probably get your answer out of Google, right? But if you want a person to try and explain at a particular level, right? I can understand as well that I might explain things in a way that's too complex sometimes, but I will still try to do my best. If my level of speaking, of explaining rather, is too complex for certain styles, and you'd want me to explain it in an easier way, please do let me know about that as well, and I will explain it in an easier way. Not because I'm trying to be condescending, but mostly because I just want to be able to better explain things. I want to learn to explain things better to people, and I would also like, I get a lot of satisfaction if the person that I'm talking to understands what I'm actually speaking about. There's no point talking about something, rambling on and on about hours, if the other person doesn't understand you, right? You might as well just be talking in another language that nobody understands. Speaking a singular language, a language that only you made up in the entire world and no one else understands. Like, what's the point? I mean, if you get happiness out of it, then sure, but why? It's so pointless. Oh, jeez. But yeah, so stuff like that. If there are any questions like that, if you wanted me to go further into it, just leave some comments, whatever it is, and I'll get into it. There's a bit of a problem, I suppose, actually, right? I'm kind of improvising on the spot here to be able to talk. I probably should have written some interesting topics for me to talk about, because this is going to be a very long and dragged out audio recording now, because I have nothing to talk about. It was my first planning at an introduction, right? And it's so poor. So if you're going to come at me with the excuse of, oh, what do you call it? Well, you probably should have prepared. You probably should have prepared yourself beforehand. I am going to tell you that preparation is not something in my vocabulary. All of my mistakes that you're going to hear are first-hand mistakes. That might annoy some people. I'm sure it would annoy a lot of perfectionists out there. Sorry, majority of people are perfectionists either way. But I feel like this is more genuine than me trying to recite something 1,000 times and come from behind the covers and be like, oh wow, look at me guys, I'm presenting myself as someone that's so perfect. I wouldn't really want that. I would much rather present to you someone who's, I don't know, fumbling about. I will most likely in the next rants make a list of topics to talk about, make a notepad for myself to remind myself what it is I have to talk about, based on what people want me to talk about. But if that doesn't come in, if people don't tell me what it is that they want me to talk about, then I suppose I'll try to make something up. We'll have to see, I might give it a week of time to see the amount of time it would take for comments to come in. I don't think it would take. I'm not very optimistic about stuff like this. So it's very likely that there might not be any comments on this video at all, right? In which case I'll probably have to improvise. But yeah, as I said, improvising is my middle name, so not really an issue. For any other people, I should mention stuff like geography, what else? History, sociology, social sciences. Those aren't my forte as well. So you could probably ask me a geology question, right? And I would have very little knowledge about it unless it was to do with something concerning evolution or fossil records by some chance. I would have very less knowledge about it. Things about, like I said, philosophy. Hopefully some people over here, intuitively minded people, theoretically minded people, might like philosophy. If there's anything if you wanted to know if you've heard of big words in philosophy like existentialism and nihilism and stuff like that, and you've always wondered what it meant, you could ask me questions like that as well. If there are things like top questions you have on atheism or theism, the different religions out there. One of my passions is studying about religious ethics, so that is something I do like to talk about as well. Is there anything else? I suppose I could mention that I could talk about gaming, but at the same time, that's not really the purpose of these rants. I would more so like them to be educational. Cough, cough, I don't think gaming is educational. Not that I don't think that. Surely you could educate people through gaming in terms of teaching them to get better, but I would much rather like to focus on science and stuff, I'm a nerd, guys. What did you expect? Oh, jeez. If you actually are still listening to this, you probably will get a cookie or something, Let me know in the comments if you actually have listened this far and ask me for that cookie, and I'll have to reward you with a cookie somehow. Why would you even be listening so far? What is the point of listening this much, I mean, then again, you could argue what's the point of just about anything, Most of the time, I think sometimes, at least emotionally minded people when they're younger, they get very upset over things like, oh, what is the point of life? Well, why am I doing this? I think it's very depressing for a lot of people when they realize that they feel so worthless, like they're not accomplishing anything, and that mostly amounts to, I think it's just because they're being emo, but it kind of boils down to a question of what's the point of anything, And I think it's a big fallacy for people to believe that there is even a point. I don't think there is a point to anything. I shouldn't say that I don't think. It's an objective truth that there is no point to just about anything. The only point that we define is an arbitrary one, which means that we're the people that make up the point, right? But if you're born into this world, right, if you can imagine a world just like this without any life at all, right, there would be no point, and that's the truth of it. We've just come into this universe, and there's no point of anything, right, apart from the point that we define for ourselves. But there isn't actually some objective point. It's not like you can look at a rock and suddenly from that single rock you can discern, okay, from this rock and from the universe as a whole, I have determined what my purpose in life is. I'm pretty sure there are certain people who would argue otherwise. I'm not going too much into this because I don't want to be... This is more of a topic of breadth rather than depth. I don't want to go too much into something for the first rant, I suppose. But this is mostly to... I guess it's more to showcase my breadth of topics, I suppose. If I am actually doing that now, I wonder what I could talk about next. Let's see. Is there something interesting like... I'm not too sure. I mean, I suppose we could talk about palindromes. That's it. Well, I'm mostly used to talking in front of crowds. I was about to ask, has anyone here heard about that? Oh wow, We're going to have to learn through a lot. I can already tell. Um, I'm going to have to improve a lot. Either way, palindromes are they're a word or a combination of letters that, when you reverse them, they sound the same. My favorite palindrome ever is a race car. So that's RACECAR, race car. And if you reverse this word, race car, you get what? Guess what? A race car, right? So that's why you call it a palindrome. I'm pretty sure there are smaller palindromes there as well, like here and there. I can't think of any right now, but race car is one. Um, it's also funny, I don't know if a biologist would be listening to this by any chance, but has anyone heard of CRISPR? Nope. CRISPR is it's a part of DNA, or rather, no, that doesn't do it justice. It's more of a it's funnily enough, it's a method of genetic engineering that was discovered or based upon the primitive immune systems of, or immune responses rather, of bacteria against viruses. Because people might know that viruses infect bacteria, and bacteria do want to deal with that. So one of the ways they deal with it is through some complex method of stuff with their DNA and proteins and stuff. Blah blah blah. Long story short, essentially, some of these palindromic repeats are there in DNA. It basically goes something like, there are a lot of repeats in DNA which have the same letters forwards as is backwards. So when you reverse them, they have the same orientation, just like race car in DNA as well. I recognize that some people it might not even make sense to people. So suddenly this person, me, is talking about what letters in DNA. How does that even make any sense? Like what? Okay, I guess I should simplify it a bit more. It's essentially, there are many different molecules that make up DNA. Many different chemicals that make up DNA, right? A lot of different building blocks is a good way to put it, right? You've got 4 different building blocks in DNA. Biologists commonly refer to them as like A, G, C, and T, let's say, right? And the point is, with these 4 letters, they're palindromic in DNA. So first you get A, and then G, and then C and T, right? They're not necessarily palindromic, but in the case that I'm talking about, they are palindromic. So, voila, there you are. Also, I guess I should mention something else. I think one of the things I would love is to come in contact with a person, or for one day, right? This is kind of maybe my dream. One day for a person to listen to what I'm saying, and then criticize me for, like I'm talking about something that someone else is a specialist in, and they notice that I'm explaining something wrong. I would love it for them to correct me on those things. So that would be lovely. The other thing that I'm kind of looking forward to. Ooh, the juicy trolls. I'm not sure. I would like to see how my interactions would be, or rather, how the interactions of trolls would be. I suppose one of the things they could what do you call it? Tease me for is no, troll me, tease me, whatever, right? Is not doing a face reveal. And, well, guys, I'm sorry, I'm just a pussy. I'm just really scared, guys. I just can't do it, I'm just too much of a pussy. I can't do a face reveal, man. It daunts me. I have severe social anxiety, and I can't. Either way, point is, maybe when I start to get a working webcam. But until then, I would much rather, it doesn't make sense to me as well, right, to have a video of yourself. When most of the essence of the video is in the audio, right? It's in the talk. Like, most of the knowledge comes from you listening to it and not looking. I don't see why it's so important, I think me just having a black overlay over my videos is probably going to set me back a lot. I really think it's going to set me back a lot, because I don't know why. It's an intuitive feeling. I feel like YouTube it's less likely for these videos to be recommended to people. Not just because they've got less views as it is, but more so because they've got no video. Like it's just I bet it's just going to be a black overlay. So you know, it doesn't really matter to me. It more so matters that if I can just help like one person, not necessarily help, but more so like I guess help them get smarter with whatever it is that they want. Even if it's I don't know, solving a math problem, right? Teaching people math here is going to be pretty tough because I don't have a whiteboard or anything like that. So I would not like to do it because it would be very tricky. I don't mind having trying to explain, but I'm pretty sure there are more practical ways for people to learn about math than to ask me how to do their math homework over here in a manner like this, where you'd have to wait a day for me to respond, and you'd have to skim out the video for the parts that are actually helpful to you. If I think about it now and looking back on how much I've talked so far, yapped so much, you should probably like name me Yappermouth or something like that. Like, because all I do is just talk about bullshit. Maybe I should rename this from Worthless Rants or to Bullshit Rants, or the bull talker, the bullshit talker, shit talker. I don't know. Either way, not the most helpful thing, right? There are easier way for people to help you. I'm pretty sure you could just go to a website as well. Yeah, that's another thing that I did want to mention as well. I'm pretty sure someone could make an argument of like, oh, but why should I ask you for help when I could just ask Google? Yeah, that's perfectly valid. I agree with you. You should ask Google. Like I said in the beginning, I've got no credibility. This is more so that if you're willing to participate in something like trying to improve me or just see where we're going with this, then like go ahead and ask me a question. But if not, then you're always welcome to get apparently more reliable answers on something like Google. There are some things that I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be able to get from Google. For example, I'm pretty sure if you wanted an explanation of something that was very complex in a simplified manner, I think it would be more reliable to approach a platform like this rather than to try getting the information out of Google. At least that's how it is in my opinion. But we'll have to see. So yeah, I guess it's getting close to summing it up. And I suppose I should say it now. The main summary of this is that if you have any questions out of morbid curiosity, right? Any questions out of curiosity that you just really want answered, philosophy, ethical dilemmas, whatever it is, philosophy dilemmas, science, those kinds of questions, right? Go ahead. If you've got personal questions, I might answer those, but as I said, I'm a pussy, so I probably will not answer them because I more so like to focus on science and stuff. But yeah, also please do let me know if it is hard to understand my pace, because I do know that I tend to talk very quickly, and it is kind of hard sometimes for people to understand my pace of speaking. So if I am talking too fast, if you think that I am talking too much too fast, let me know about that as well. So yeah, I think that should sum it up. I'm not sure if this was very enjoying, and once again, as I said, it probably isn't too enjoying because it probably isn't too enjoying. Voila, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this amazing grammatical speak. Oh, jeez. Well, I guess I should cross grammar off of the list of the things that I'm good at. Either way, right? The point is, this first talk is, as I said, not going to be very interesting because I don't have much topics that I know that I should talk about, right? Although I have a lot of things in my head, it's very much similar to using the right key to unlock the box. I feel like my head is a box, and it's not going to give anything useful unless asked with the right kind of questions or presented with the right kind of keys. So, in terms of that, the next rant, I'm not sure what I'm going to call these things yet, right? I'm not sure what I'm going to call these series yet. This series yet. Jeez. We'll have to see. right? The next rant would probably be better. So thanks for listening. I'll catch you later.